Alright, so I'm attempting to replace the radio on Nissan Murano. This is 05. I bought the dash kit. This is kind of not your regular typical install. I've installed a couple radios before in my time, and this is a little bit where it starts to get confusing. After you remove the radio, this is the chip they're talking about, which makes it impossible to replace the factory radio with aftermarket. And after you remove the radio and get this far, this is where everything starts to get a little bit confusing. You're still going to need to utilize this outer ring here. You're going to take this out, this part, this whole thing. Still considered the radio up front when you take the radio off. Which is back here in the back seat. So after you disconnect all that stuff, right, now you got that ring removed. Now you're trying to install this new piece on here, and you're going to have to do a couple modifications. You see these little knobs here that hooked onto the factory radio? They're not letting it shut. So you got this gap here. So you're going to have to cut that off on both sides. And this bar here, it's right on the way of this harness. And it's actually squeezing it. You're not going to be able to get this tight on the top. So you're going to have to snip it here to make room for. Alright, so I notched off that one. That one. That one. This bracket on the top, you're going to have to cut back to there. And same thing on this side, which I got one side snipped. I'm just using a pair of wire cutters. That's right through this plastic. Be careful not to cut that small hole out. You can cut on the square because you're going to need that small hole to install the screw. Alright, now here it is installed. Got all the screws in. Two there. There's only going to be four. Two on the top. Be very careful when you're screwing these in. It seems like the threads get stripped out pretty easily in this plastic, so don't torque them down too hard. I actually bought this aftermarket radio thing on eBay. It was already used, and all the screws were pretty much stripped out, so I put a little. So that part that was on here goes there, and then the harness that comes with it, which is this one. The top of it plugs in here, then the bottom of it plugs in here. They're all put back together. This is that harness. You want to have it pointing out towards the bottom of the radio. If you point it the other way, it's not going to fit right. This is the harness that came with the Metra kit. There's a 16 pin here, I think 16 pin, but whatever. It goes around, you can kind of tuck it on the side. Goes around and up through another little connector in here, which powers the top part. Alright, so ran into a little problem here. These metal brackets that come with the factory radio thing, when you put the radio in, there's only one screw that you'll be able to get in there to hold the radio in, which isn't going to be sufficient enough. This kit comes with a plastic replacement part. But like I said, I bought it aftermarket, and both of them are just destroyed. You can tell whoever removed this radio was a complete asshole and just didn't know how to use a screwdriver and just yanked everything off. And plus this plastic is extremely flimsy and crap for a kit that costs over $250. I think they could have used a better plastic. But anyway, I'm still going to use these metal brackets because I have no other choice. Alright, so that was a pain in the ass. Marked up with a hose work for the radio. You're going to have one right about there where that little notch is. In between that and that hole. And then another one closer to the front of the radio. There's actually... And you're also going to want to put some blues painter's tape right in front of your radio. There's going to be a lot of shoving and banging and pushing and trying to get this shit in there. And it's going to be very easy for you to get a scratch on this $300. Then if you have a Pioneer radio, there's going to be a parking brake bypass for the DVD player and all your navigation apps. And this is pretty self-explanatory. There's a blue wire, there's a green wire that hooks onto your parking brake. This is on the aftermarket radio harness, and a brown wire, which I believe is ground. So here's the harness put back onto the radio. You obviously want to take that pin off, remove it from the radio, and get all your connections done. The right way to do it is you should solder these and shrink wrap, but whatever. On two of these are going to be two connectors. These are for your speaker wires and all your stuff for the radio, power your radio, your dimmer, your remote, all that good stuff. There's no wrong way of putting these things in. Every single connector has its own female and male end, so you can't stick the wrong one in the wrong place. Your RCA wires and your amp wire. This is only if you're running amplifier with subwoofer in the back. Got them peeking through here. There's two blue wires. Blah, 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 blah. This is your harness. Hook out the blue remote wire to this. Your RCAs are obviously going to get connected to the back of the radio. And when you do put all these wires together, just go ahead and buy these little butt connectors. I got 100 of them. They're number 16/14, which is the size you're going to need for radio install. For like a couple dollars on eBay. I see a lot of guys just wrap wires in electrical tape, and they don't know that when it does get hot, the electrical tape pretty much just peels off, and you're going to have loose connections. If you got a power wire that touches the side of the radio, shit's going to short circuit. But anyway, just run your wires to there, same way you ran the mic wire. But you're going to run it under here. Alright, so here's everything plugged in. It's kind of impossible to get a camera shot of this, but I'll try to give you whatever I can. Here's your antenna. You have to plug this in or your radio will not turn on. This grounds out your radio. Here's your RCA for your amp. The two bottom one are for your amp. It says it on there. This is auxiliary out. I can't see. Auxiliary. This is if you want to plug your phone into a headphone jack. This radio is not really necessary, but I had the wire, I already bought it, so I stuck it on there. Here's your USB. This is where you're going to plug your iPhone into, or your thumb drive or whatever. I use it for my iPhone. Down here are two little 1/8 inch jacks. One's for your microphone, which is obviously the mic, and then there's another one that says WR on there. The one this side to the far right. That's for your steering wheel controls. And then all your connectors. Here it is all done. Looks pretty sharp. Alright, now this is if you want to install the amp onto your Murano. There's a grommet back there. It's the only grommet you're going to be visible. It's on the driver's side, top right hand corner. And that's going to lead to the inside of the vehicle underneath your steering wheel. You're going to want to get yourself a long screwdriver like this with a metal handle, because there's absolute zero room for you to do anything in here. You're going to want to poke at that grommet until you make yourself a half decent size hole, and then feed your amp wire, 4-gauge power wire, through that hole. While you're feeding it in, it kind of works to twist it at the same time, kind of spin it, and it'll start to roll itself down. There's actually like seems like a plastic tube. This is gonna be almost impossible to film, but there it is poking out there. So it's kind of behind your emergency brake. You're gonna see a hole with that wire sticking through that wire. Alright, now for the ground for the amp, there's a bolt right there. It's holding down this little strap thing here. You want to take that bolt out, take that strap off, and sand that area down as good as can. You want to take all the paint off of there because you want a pretty good ground directly onto the chassis. I just used some sandpaper. Here's the wires around through here. There's the back of the little speaker box. There's an amp. Cheap little $60 Planet audio amp, 1000 watt. And then a Pioneer inside a 10-inch subwoofer. I'll tell you what. Alright, now I'm going to test that parking brake bypass. Obviously parking brake is not on. This is one with the foot you gotta step on. All I did was turn the radio on. It says something about blah blah blah, you can't watch it. Press OK. I think it does it twice. There we go, it plays right away. thing does work.